I'm not telling you what we're laughing about. Happy Friday. Very briefly, this week I finished reading Gutter Child by J.L. Richardson, and I think on a star basis, I would rate it 4 out of 5 stars. I, huh, I'm moved by this story in a lot of different ways. It has been a while since I've read. This book is. It's not at the level of Octavia Butler. It is a debut, and so what I'm gonna say. I just don't want people who love Octavia Butler to be like, "Oh my gosh, I need to get this book," because I'm not making that comparison. But what I will say is, from a plot perspective, I can't remember the last time I read a speculative fiction novel. So, like that, I read fiction set in the. I don't even know what year this is actually. I don't know what time period we're in, but it feels. I don't know. I don't know what to say about that. But this story is written from the perspective of a girl. And think about it. Think about the movies that you've watched, science fiction movies that you've watched. Think about, or speculative fiction, like dystopians, because I think it's a dystopia. But if you think about dystopian movies that you've watched or books that you've read, and think about how many of them were told from the perspective of a Black girl, I think that's really it's rare in my view. It's rare to have a young protagonist in an adult novel, and for that protagonist to be young and female, and also Black, or at least coded as Black, but certainly Black. She's Black. So I think that this book really gets, and I match it, not on purpose, but I think this book really gets at race nuance, race relations nuances in a way that I really appreciated. There's a lot of texture to a relationship between a middle-aged white woman who wants to do right by a Black girl, and then the Black girl who experiences those efforts in a lot of different ways. So there's that. I think there are interesting observations about mixed race identity in this book. There are interesting observations about class stratification, and race stratification. There is disability representation, but it's not taken up very well in some of the characters. But there is from like a body mind's perspective, which I'll get to in a second. There are observations of how racial injustice, patriarchy, and oppressive political systems, like the ways that those systems impact the psyche and also impact the body, and the body mind. So that is also really present as well. So there's a lot to get into here. I think, there's a lot to get into. So if you're interested in speculative fiction that has elements of, or that's set in institutions like schools, and that places a heavy emphasis on government policies, societal values. Like if you enjoy the sociological aspects of the world building, then I think you need to read this. I definitely think you need to read this. And it's in that way that I suggest that this book is similar to some of the world building that Octavia E. Butler does in in the parables. Because you definitely, while there isn't a lot of direct government interaction, there is a lot of there's a lot of discussion about government and the police and all of the various institutions that work together to create a system in which the gutter people are just down-pressed, right? Not even oppressed, but down-pressed. So I actually would recommend this book selfishly because I want to talk about it. I know Josh has read it, and there are a couple of other people who read it. And a funny story, a couple of days ago, as I was finishing this book and reading it as I was traveling on public transit, I saw a woman with the book. She's a white woman, masked and everything. And it's funny because now, like, I don't really communicate with a lot of people. I don't step close to people or walk near to them because of COVID. But I kind of I don't know. I think I might have even like tapped her and then stood back and said, I just finished reading that book. What do you think of it? And she sort of looked around, and then I guess, you make that assumption, that assessment as to whether somebody's safe or not. And she said, actually, my coworker's niece is the author of this book. And I was like, oh, you work with like JL's aunt or uncle. That's really cool. And she said, yeah, she's so proud of this book. And she was telling everybody at our workplace about this book. So I had to go out and buy it. And I said, oh, really cool. I said, well, I finished it. This was actually after I finished the book. I was reading something else. I said, what part are you on? She's like, oh, the main character just left this place. And I was like, oh my gosh. Okay. And then we had this like really short exchange, but after that, on the way to work, I thought, when people talk about books being able to bring people together, that was such a poignant example of that, because I definitely would not have spoken to this woman, let alone poked her for any reason. I would never have done that. I didn't poke her, but I wouldn't have got her attention and then talk to her about a book or anything on public transit in this historical moment. So it was really nice to just have that brief interaction, to see her eyes light up above her mask with excitement to tell me how much her coworker is proud of the author. And for me, because I went to the launch and I remember hearing J.L. Richardson talk about how proud she was, how proud her family members were of her for writing this book, which she wrote over 8 years. So I just really loved that moment. The other thing that I want to tell you about is that, so anyway, yes, I would recommend Gutter Child. I'm glad that I'm done because I spent 3 weeks reading it. It was a really good experience. But when I was done, I was like, okay, I want to move on and try something else. So I returned to Body Minds Reimagined, which I'm slow reading in between all of my fiction books. So this is a book written by Dr. Sami Shock, who worked with Lizzo, and it's on Twitter. The book is called Body Minds Reimagined: Disability, Race, and Gender in Black Women's Speculative Fiction. So what I'm doing is I'm reading a chapter of this book in between reading speculative fiction by Black women in an attempt to deepen my understanding of disability, not only representation, but also the way that speculative fiction by Black women allows us to think about disability differently, and in particular think about the ways that disability has been constructed. So by separating the body from the mind, when really we really should be talking about the the relationship between the material, like tangible experiences of disability, but also the ways that using disability as metaphor can assist us in understanding the ways that disability has been racialized, has been gendered, has been classed over time in our writing. And so I hope that you notice that I'm getting I'm noticing that I am my words are coming out a little bit more clearly when it comes to discussing Body Minds Reimagined, because I am struggling with the concepts. They're new for me, but I want to get more articulate. So I'm trying to talk about it more. So please bear with me as I try to explain the ideas that I'm learning. So I'm going to finish this chapter that I'm reading. I'm on chapter 2. There are 4 chapters in this book. And then I'm going to move on to another piece of speculative fiction by a Black woman. I don't know what I'm going to read, but it might not be speculative fiction, but I think it's probably going to be something by Dr. Nnedi Okorafor, and I think it's going to be either After the Rain or Remote Control. I think it's going to be Remote Control because I'm quite curious about that text. All right. If you have made it all to the end of this video, thank you for being with me on my Friday reads. Some announcements. I thought that I would be able to do Wednesday morning sprints, and I'm not able to do morning sprints on a regular schedule during the week because of my work schedule. So I'm going to be doing surprise sprints whenever I feel like it. So just make sure that you're subscribed to the channel, that you have clicked the notification bell that allows you to get notifications for all of my videos. That way you'll know if I'm reading online at any given time. So I'm not going to structure my sprints. I'm going to do them whenever I want to and whenever I can, so that they remain fun and they don't start feeling like a duty, kind of like Friday Reads. Also, tomorrow will be the Black SFF panel. It's the final panel for the Black Book Summit, brought to you by the brilliant and accountable minds of the Black Prose Book Club. That would be Troy Nicole, that would be Oshale, and that would be Brittany. So please join us tomorrow. I believe that the panel starts at 2:00 Eastern. I could be wrong. Check it on the socials. And let's have a conversation about Black science fiction and fantasy. And what else do I need to say to you? I think that's all I have for now. Remember to read with purpose. Because you're buying with purpose, right? I mean, I would hope so, right? Hopefully you're doing everything else on purpose, so why not read on purpose as well? Because if you don't, then you're allowing other people to deposit their worldviews into your mind, and you will subconsciously start acting out the kinds of things that you read unconsciously. So why not like purposefully read, so that you can act and speak and engage in ways that uplift you and others. How about that? If you've watched this video all the way to the end, please put something green in the comments and leave your comments. Let's have a discussion about what you're reading and what are your thoughts about reading on purpose. Do you read on purpose? Tell me more about that. All right. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow on the panel, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.